Hey guys, Thomas the Silly Jr. here, aka Mustached, and welcome to my review of The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It. If you end up enjoying this review, then please consider joining my Patreon page. Any donations are desperately needed. And I'll remind you of the shilling at the end of the review. Alrighty, shilling aside, let's get into this. Uh, in terms of what I thought about the first two Conjurings, I believe I've seen them both. I don't remember if I reviewed them both. It's been a while. Um, I remember them having those little interconnected sort of story beats. I remember the the spooks being there was some character driven stuff, which is probably why it got higher praise back then. But the possession stuff probably got, from what I can tell from this movie, significantly lowered or weakened in this movie. Anyways, let's get into the recap portion. We jump back in time to 1981 and we reveal some text about this boy who is possessed. Uh, and the priest arrives and they're having some difficulty in performing it. So, uh, he gets knocked over, and the woman named Lorraine gets visions about something, and we won't know until later in the movie what that's all about. But anyways, one of the people that live there, uh, this slightly older gentleman, uh, grabs the child possessed by the demon and says, "Take me instead." So the demon does so. Uh, and in the process, her or Ed more so over the main priest guy, is knocked out due to getting nearly heart palpitated to the chest. So we get more text about how this is the story essentially that is going to unfold. That we're going to follow this guy. So we cut to him, and he's just chilling with his girlfriend. And we see that they're in his dog kennel. And while there, they work with this guy named Arnie, the one who gets possessed, taken over. It's gonna get some food, and we see the first spook, if I can even call it that. It's just a bowl of or a rice or breakfast being knocked over by a rat. And then he gets double grabbed by two short individuals. And every time there's a spook, the movie just cuts away pretty drastically in every instance. And I suppose the only thing that the movie has going for it is that they try in some instances to lean into the jump scare with some tension-based music, and that's the only type of spooks there are in this movie. Anyway, while she has a moment with this other newer priest, older guy, she talks about how she and Ed had first met and dated way back when. So, anyways, we're jumping back with Arnie, and he has a little freak out accident with a chainsaw because he saw a figure in the window, and so he's going out and about. Anyway, Lorraine is warned that the demon moved. The guy, Ed, says as much after waking up from the hospital. So she calls the police to check in on them. Anyways, so Arnie's having a freak out moment while his girlfriend and him and this other guy they work for, I guess, are all in this area. and he goes for the kill on the guy. That he's seeing something else, is what it's being presented as. And as he sort of shambles on along the road, the police are already kind of moving in, as I was talking about. And the guy's like, oh, what's going on? So, yeah. As he's led into the police station, he's met up with the other two, and he's talking about how he knows how he was grabbed, and how they are a little bit confused how he can read from the Bible, and they'll do all this religious stuff with the demon inside, or as they suspect a demon is inside him currently. So they go to his lawyer, and she says that they will not be able to do it unless they can prove within the court system that there was a demonic possession. So they take him to their place. It's a cutaway gag where they cut it away from them, her being led there, to her in the courtroom case being like, yep, I'm gonna do it. So they go over the cassette tapes that they have, and we see a little bit of a flashback about when the family first moved in, and how when the boy ran into the house, apparently he was immediately possessed, and things happened in the bed with the water bed, and faces appearing on it, and him being pulled in. So the house gets checked, and in the basement, Lorraine checks it out. And she sees a strange little figurine. It's like a little skull glyph figurine, I guess I'll call it. Or a totem, as they call it in the movie. And this priest that was with them mentions this other priest, I'll call him the new priest, says that he can help them out. So they go to him, and this guy says that the demons, or, all that, and the demon worshippers, they don't care about the why things are happening, they just want to cause a little bit of chaos. And it also informs them that the situation is going to prove to be really rough. Anywho, we cut back to Arnie, who's messing with, he's cleaning up and messes with a bucket. He, knocks it over and gets double spooked by being double grabbed once more. And it cuts away again. So anyways, Lorraine makes a deal. As she's dealing with the police, she says they can help them with apparently a case that has very similar circumstances to this one. So they head out to look for this body. So they're doing that over there. Meanwhile, in the prison cell, Arnie is being checked in with his girlfriend and the boy that was possessed in the beginning of the movie, and the boy is talking about how things were like when he was possessed and how he must be feeling right now. We cut back to Lorraine, who goes into dark forest mode, and she sees the two former victims that they were looking for running off, so she goes running off. She nearly jumps off or falls off a cliff and gets saved. So all that goes down. And eventually Lorraine figures out that that from the vision I was mentioning earlier, that she's apparently connected to the witch, or the killer, quote-unquote killer in this instant, and from the first touch. Cut to Arnie praying briefly, and we cut back to Lorraine and Ed breaking into the police station. They want to get things done. So they go to the body of one of the people that fell, the body that they found, and she touches it, and she gets a new connection. where she could see briefly where the witch is. Uh, and so, uh, the two of them seem to have some sort of connection talk. And Ed, in the meanwhile, is seeing this fat evil approach Big Evil Possessed and goes after them. Pulls her away just in time, and they leave the scene. And they go back to the files back at their house, but Ed sees the witch at their house, and the fat evil guy returns once more. And they find out that somehow the witch delivered a new totem to their place. And thus, Ed and one of the co-workers that they got on start pinpointing the location that this could possibly be taking place in. And based off of the 3 pinpoints that they got, they're able to narrow it down based off of other information that Lorraine mentions about a train or something. So Lorraine, getting the bright idea, seeing that connection and all that, goes back to the new priest, thinking that he had more going on to his story. And Ed is wanting to head up as well. So we go over the new priest's backstory, and he mentions how this is his daughter, and that his heavy insistent on going into the whole religion thing made her go into this whole being a witch thing. The sins of the father and all that. Anyway, so he feels responsible, and the witch visits him and proceeds to kill him as soon as Lorraine leaves. She doesn't even really get that far. And Ed is driving over all the meanwhile, and the witch is going after Lorraine in the secret area that they were looking for was, I guess, connected to this house by some lengths of distance, ? Anyway, so he goes there and allows for Lorraine to nearly escape, but the witch gets to Ed first and blows some dust in his face. Meanwhile, Arnie is going big possessed mode. Grabs some glass with the demon luring over him as Ed is going after Lorraine, being possessed as well. And Lorraine is trying to convince him that he is more powerful as he's given a hammer, and they were told earlier, or figured out earlier, that smashing the totem or the area would break the curse, and it would just so happen that he's being led there by the possession itself. Whoops. So they all move in, and the witch gets, they're moving in there, and eventually he breaks away from it long enough to smash the table, and thus, since the witch has nothing left, the demon has to possess something, so it's going to possess her, and does so, and kills her instantly. Or pretty quickly, anyway. And thus the movie concludes by saying Arnie served his time, and then proceeded to be married and live the rest of his life pretty good, I guess. And that was The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It. And of course there was, I assume, another tease for another movie, I think, by the end of the movie. But I think, like any other franchise these days, I never really thought The Conjuring was that strong to begin with. I thought it was okay-ish, but it's definitely this one that made it really obvious that they didn't really care. The spooks and the scares were just basic jump scares with little tension buildups beforehand. The characters, you would have to have seen the other ones to get these two, their characters down packed, and the only other connection is learning how they got married in the first place, which is always neat information, but at the end of the day, it's only going to do so much, because you have to fulfill, I feel, both requirements, and I don't think that's such a hard ask to be both very character driven and be scary. I don't think that's hard at all, but apparently there are so many horror movies that these days that tend to like to get both of those down. And it's very irritating when it's actually the former. So I'm actually still pretty glad that the character stuff is okay. You kind of want these two to get through whatever they're going through, which is, again, where you would have to have that prior knowledge of the previous movies and the information you're provided with in this movie. But, so this movie at least has that going for it in terms of being a horror movie and a possession movie. Definitely one of the weaker ones I've seen, in terms of, you can only do so much. It is unfortunate of the possession and stake these days. Body contortions and stuff like that. We've seen the limit of that, I think, from what I can gauge. And yeah, outside of that, there's just not that much going on outside of it. So I'm gonna give the movie like a 5 out of 10. Like it does just the bare minimum of character work needed to be like, yeah, I don't want to see these two die or anything. It's not like these two are completely flat and undesirable, like, oh, just get these, you're almost rooting for the killer type of movie, which is, I feel like a lot of horror movies tend to do by accident, or probably even on purpose sometimes, depending on whatever type of movie you're trying to make. But, again, I feel like there are two requirements you need to fulfill, and, sort of fulfilled the first to its bare minimum. And the second is, you can again, possession stuff, there's only so much you can do with it, so you really gotta lean on the character stuff. So you care about the characters even more, so when terrible things happen, you go, oh man, I fear for the character. That's what you're trying to achieve. I feel like that is the thing you're trying to achieve when you're doing horror, for other characters. You're putting your fear, you're placing it onto the character. But that's just me trying to be, all objective and whatnot. So again, a 5 out of 10. And if you ended up enjoying this review, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out the links in the description. One will head you over to my Discord server, the other, the second, to my Patreon page. Again, any donations are desperately needed. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye!